What's going on, guys? It is Caleb, and today I'm going to bring you guys some furthermore detailed objects, a little bit more about objects. We're going to get a little review so far. I know this is another review right after a previous review, which was followed up by, I think, an introduction to objects. So we're actually starting our next set of lessons, Introduction to Objects 1. We're going to learn a little bit about OOP, which is Object-Oriented Programming, which is awesome and phenomenal, and this is the whole, you could say, the cream to the crop when it comes down to JavaScripting and Java code and programming in general. It's all about OOP. So without further more to say, let's go ahead and get started. If you're not already in full screen, go ahead and make sure you're in full screen. Along with, if you're not at Codecademy, it's pretty smart to go ahead and follow along with me. So once again, I'm going to go ahead and reset my code. Now I won't reset all of these things because I just tried to make a previous video and it honestly it took forever because I had to write out all the switch statements and I had to write out the conditional things, the Fizzbuzz and everything else. So I'm going to try and make this one a little bit shorter. Hopefully this will be under 20 minutes. The more time I sit here rambling on about it, the longer this video is going to be. So let's go ahead and get started. We've come a long way, or we've come a long dot. So if a yellow triangle warning appears in the editor next to any code we provide in any exercise, it's fine to ignore them. Thanks. So the very basic building block of JavaScript are primitive data types. We know 3 primitives so far. We know strings, which are words captured in quotation marks. We also know about numbers, like 8, 3, 7, 9, and 2. And we also know about booleans, which return values of either true or false. We learned about the use of comparators, such as greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, not equal to, and or not, and etc. All the fun little compare operators. One really important thing to note is that anytime comparisons are made, a Boolean value is returned. So whenever you compare two things, it's always going to return a true or false statement. The instructions are, this is a long and ugly expression in the editor. Overall, it evaluates to a Boolean. In example, either the entire statement is true or it is false. What does this expression in the editor evaluate to? Then declare a variable name answer, assign it to the Boolean value that the expression evaluates to. Delete the default code in the editor and run your code. So, right off the get-go, we have a 50-50 chance of passing this exercise, and that's just by creating a variable named answer and assigning it the true or assigning it the false. But that's not really, you're not going to learn anything by doing that, just by guessing. What it wants you to do is read the code, and so you could test yourself, see if you could figure out what this is doing by itself. So if we go ahead and do 3 times 90, and as you can see, I'm going to this one first because it's the one that is the first open parentheses and the closest one with the closed parentheses. So this is going to go first. And let's go ahead and do this by 3 times 9 equals 27. If we carry the 0, we get 270. So if 270 equals 270, that's going to be true. Now we have an OR statement right here with the 2 little brackets. And now we're saying not false and not false. Well, not false is true, and true is going to result in true. So now if we go back to our first statement, we're saying true because 270 equals 270, or we're saying true or true, which these 2 code blocks right here in this ugly expression already result to true. So we already got half the problem gone. Now we're saying true or, and we have a string here, and we're using the toUpperCase method. And essentially what this is going to do is going to take Bex, which is BEX, and it's going to change it to uppercase, which equals capital B, capital E, and capital X. And that's going to result in true because if you use Bex toUpperCase method on it, it's going to equal Bex. So it's pretty much saying true or true here once again. So the outcome of this statement whether it being true or true, will result in true. And hopefully you guys could catch along with that without me having to type it out. But what it wants us to do is create a variable called answer, and it wants us to assign it to the result, and it's going to be true. And we go ahead and click OK. We submit it, we get the green light, and we're good. Now we'll go ahead and reset our code here. Through the hard times, ... Once again, with these dramatic pauses, it does it through all the exercises. Don't know why. We know two ways of storing data types. We can use variables or arrays. We use variables to store data, like strings or numbers, that we later want to access. An array is exactly the same as a variable in it that it stores data. The difference is that an array can store many more values while a variable can only store one. To access arrays, we use bracket notation. And remember that arrays use zero-based indexing. An example, the first value in an array is at position 0 and not 1 like one would assume. So the instructions are, look at the array, multiples of 8. Find the one that doesn't fit. Replace x in line 6 such that the variable answer is assigned to the Boolean value of true. So if we go ahead and go over here and read our little comments and read our little editor, we have here's an array of multiples of 8, but is it correct? So one of these is not correct, and I'm going to go ahead and tell you which one it is off the get-go. Hopefully you guys know your times tables by now. So we have 8, 16, 24, 32, 40, and now we should have 48, not 58. So this one is wrong. This is not a multiple of 8. So that's the one that's wrong. Keep note of that 58, where it's at and where it's indexed at. Now it says test to see if the number from the array is not a true multiple of 8. Real multiples will return false. So what we're saying here now, we're assigning a new variable called answer, and it's going to equal one of the indexes of our multiples of 8 and within our array. Now we're going to modulo it by 8 to see if it's divisible by 8, and if it's completely divisible by 8, it should result in 0, meaning that there is no remainder, so it's completely divisible by 8. But what it's saying here is if you divide this by 8 and you get something, you get some kind of an outcome, or in other words, if you get a remainder which is not equal to 0, then that number is not a multiple of 8. And so what we want to do here is change x to the 5th, or we want to change it to 5. And you may be wondering, well, why do we change it to 5? 5 is so irrelevant to x and to 8. You know, 5 and 8, where'd you get that? Well, if you think about it, we are calling the multiples of 8, which is an array. Now, if we look up here in our array, down here we're using bracket notation, like it said over here, and remembering that we are using zero-based indexing, meaning that this number 8 right here in our array is at position 0. The 16 is at 1, the 24 is at 2, the 32 is at 3. The 40 is at 4, and the 58 is the 5th element, or the 5th item, or whatever you want to call it, the 5th number that is indexed in our array. So right now I'm referring to 58, and I'm dividing it, or I'm moduloing it, in other words, by 8 to see if it's divisible by 8. And if we get something that doesn't equal 0 as a remainder, then obviously it's going to result in true, and that will give us the number saying that it's not divisible by 8, in which 58 is not divisible by 8. So we go ahead and submit this. We're going to get the green light. So hopefully you guys caught along with that. And good. We heard a lot of you enjoyed Fizzbuzz. Look at the following exercise. There are two ways to write the code. The first time you did this exercise, most of you would have used the AND operator, which represents AND. Try answering this exercise using a nested conditional. If you're having trouble, revisit the Fizzbuzz project. Now, quick little recap. Most of you guys probably won't know what Fizzbuzz is. If you guys stuck around with Codecademy long enough, or if you were here before they updated all their courses, you would have realized that, hey, before Codecademy had a bunch of these courses, just like the ones we're taking now and the ones that I'm covering now, except they were a lot more in depth and they had different exercises, and Fizzbuzz was one of the projects. And essentially what this was a little game, not necessarily a game, but what you would do, you would print out numbers, and if they were divisible by 5 and 3, you would print out Fizzbuzz. If they were divisible by 3, you print out Fizz, and if they were divisible by 5, you print out Buzz. And when I say if they're divisible, I'm referring to the number. If the number, for example, if 5 was divisible by 5, you would print out Buzz. So the instructions are print out numbers 1 through 20. And to do this, right now I'm not going to reset it. You should have a blank editor, but you can just see my code right here. I'm going to do this for the next couple exercises. But to do this, I'll get into more. Actually, I'll read the instructions, then I'll run through the code. So print out the numbers 1 through 20. The rules: for numbers that are divisible by 3, print out Fizz. For numbers divisible by 5, print out Buzz. For numbers divisible by both 3 and 5, print out Fizzbuzz. In the console, otherwise just print out the number. Well, easily just to print out on 1 through 20, we need a for loop. And instead of using 20 console.logs, we're going to use the for loop. So for var I, and this is going to be whatever variable you want, and I'm going to assign it to 1 because 1 is going to be the number that we're starting off at. Now I'm doing I is less than and equal to 20. Now that's important because we're going to count not all the way up less than 19 or less than 20, which is 19. We're going to count up to 20. So we're including 20 in on our count. So we should be printing out 1 through 20 on our console. And as you can see down here, we have a console.log I within an else statement, but I'll get to that in a second. So if you go ahead and open up your curly braces, the very first thing you want to write is an if statement. And what we're going to say within this if statement is if I, or whatever your little variable that you created for your for loop, in this case I'm using I, so if I is moduloed by 5, this means if this number, whatever number we are at, so for example, if 5 was divisible by 5 and it equals 0, so it pretty much saying if 5 can be divided by 5 and have a remainder of 0, and if the 5 is divisible by 3 and has a remainder of 0, then it wants us to print out Fizzbuzz. And 5 would not fall underneath this little conditional statement. But what number would fall is 15, because 15, not only is it divisible by 5 and it has a remainder of 0, and I mean this by 5, 10, 15, that's 5.0, and then we also have the 3, which is 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, or actually I said that backwards, the 5 should be 3.0, but anyways, the I modulo by 3 is equal to 0. So that would be 5.0 right there, because you're using 5 times 3 to get up to 15. So instead of printing out 15 in our console, we should have Fizzbuzz. And I'll show you guys what I'm talking about later on. And the next thing we want to write is an else if. So else if I, or remember I is whatever number that we have. So whatever number we are on, if that's divisible by 3 and we have a remainder of 0, that means that number is easily divisible by 3. So these are numbers like 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, and so forth. Now, instead of printing out that number, we want to print out Fizz. So okay, I'm just kind of seeing what you're doing here, Caleb. I'm kind of catching along, but not quite. And that's fine. That's fine if you're not completely grabbing or grasping the idea behind this. It's completely fine. I'm just trying to thoroughly explain this. Our third thing is going to be another else if, and we're going to check our number once again and see if it's divisible by 5. If that's divisible by 5 and has a remainder of 0, so this would work on numbers like 5, 10, 15, and 20, we wanted to print out Buzz to our console instead of the number. Now, else, and this is a result to everything else, so any of the odd numbers or some of the even numbers that don't get, actually I think all the even numbers should, no, actually no, 8 would not get passed through, so some of the even numbers, some of the odd numbers, just some of the numbers in between, anything that's not divisible by 5 or 3, or 5 and 3, is going to get printed out in just normal form. So hopefully you guys have seen this code long enough that you don't have to pause the video. I feel like I've been rambling on about this code, but it's time to save and submit our code and see what we get out in our console. Now if we look in our console, we get 1, 2, now remember 3 is divisible by 3, and it gives us a remainder of 0, so we should be printing out fizz, as you can see here for our rules. So we get fizz. Then we get 4. Now 5 is going to be buzz, because 5 is easily divisible by 5, so we're going to get buzz in our console. Now 6 is divisible by 3, because 2 can go in the 6 3 times, so we're going to get fizz. 7, 8 are not divisible by 3 nor 5, but 9 is once again divisible by 3, so we should get fizz. 10 is divisible by 5, so we should get buzz. Nothing goes into 11. 12 is divisible by 3, so we should get fizz once again. 13 and 14 do not get the divisibles or nothing because they're not dividable. 15 now, 15's the special one because 15 not only is it divisible by 5, it's also divisible by 3. So in this case, we should print out Fizzbuzz because it's divisible both by 3 and 5. 16, 17 just get printed out to the console. 18 is divisible by 3. Then we have 19, and then finally we are stuck on 20, where we should have buzz because 20 is divisible by 5. So hopefully you guys got the concept behind all this. And let's go ahead and go on to the next lesson. Now, once again, I'm not going to reset the console because this will just be a lot of nonsense typing, and I'm going to ramble long enough that you guys can go ahead and copy all this down. And this is going to be another switch statement, so let's go ahead and read what it has to say on the left-hand side, and then we can talk about the code on the right. So, I have to celebrate you, baby. This exercise has lots of movies and reviews to type in. You might wonder, is this teaching coding or typing? And right now, I'm going to tell you straight up, it's teaching you how to type because yeah, you're typing way too much for these exercises. But don't worry, the future exercises are not going to be this typing intensive, or yeah, it's going to be a lot less. So anyways, but there's a reason why there are so many cases to deal with. We want to show that if we use if-else statements, it would be inefficient. What alternative from the conditionals lessons can we use? And well, if we think back to our conditional lessons, which wasn't that far back ago, we remembered that using switch statements are a lot better and more efficient programming. So the instructions are, imagine you have a movie collection and you want to write some code that assigns your value to each of them. Obviously, each review differs depending on the movie. Below are the movies and your review. Use a structure learned in an earlier lesson to write code for the information below. And here is where we'll take in our cases, which is matrix, and then we are going to return out our good trip out. And here you'll see we have matrix. Really what it's saying, it's going to give us the case, and it's going to give us the data that we want to print out. And that's what I'm doing right here on the right hand side. As you can see, we have Princess Bride, and it wants us to return the date night movie. We have Welcome to America, and then it wants us to return Amjad's favorite. We also have another case called Remember the Titans, Love the Sports, Why Do I Look Like I'm 12, the Ryan and Zach story, Fighting Kangaroos in the Wild, and it's going to return Token Australian Movie for Lean. So, getReview should be a function that takes a movie name and returns its review based on the information above. If given a movie name and not found, just return I don't know. So if we go ahead and if you guys don't remember how to use the switch statement, this is going to look a little bit different. Note that it doesn't matter because some of you might be like, oh, well, where's your break statement? Well, essentially we are breaking out of each case with a return statement. The return statement, remember, once it hits a return, once JavaScript hits return, once it sees the return, whatever is after that does not get ran. So anything after this return code, as in here, does not get run at all. That's just the same thing as a break. It's just going to break it out of the loop, or it's going to return out of the loop, and it's going to go and finish off whatever else is not necessarily in that function, but whatever else JavaScript that's going to have to be run. So right now, to get our stuff up and coded, we just want to type switch, and we're passing in our movie. And you might be wondering, well, why are we passing in our movie? Well, the movie is referring to the movie variable that we passed in through our function, which is going to be a string. Now, as you can see, we match each of these strings to our case. So if we pass in matrix to our getReview function, as you can see down here, we have getReview matrix is going to refer to this first case. And what this should do, if we were to run this right now, it should return good trip out. Now, if we were to, instead of use matrix, if we were to type Princess Bride, it should return awesome date night movie, and so forth. So essentially what you want to do is just use a bunch of these cases and return statements to go ahead and write out all the ones that on the left hand side, and which is to write out the matrix, Princess Bride, and all of them all the way down to the fighting kangaroo bullshit. So don't forget to add a default too, because without a default, if you were to put in something that wasn't a case, it wouldn't have nothing to fall back on, and you would get an error, and life wouldn't be good. So long story short, save and submit your code. Hopefully you guys had long enough to read this, and let's go on to the next exercise. And we got a good trip out because we passed in matrix. So let's go ahead and start the next little lesson. I have to praise you like I should. Congratulations for making it this far. We hope you're enjoying the courses and feel free we hope you are enjoying the courses and feel more comfortable programming in JavaScript. We have a number of exciting things in store for you and can't wait to roll them out. Instructions. If you're ready to start learning about objects, print in the console, I'm ready for objects. So to do this, all you have to do is console.log, I'm ready for objects, and that will get you past this little introduction to objects. I believe this is what it was, or no, this was the review story so far. This is what we're doing. So this was a lot of review, and we covered a lot. Hopefully you guys kept up, and sorry for making it so long and drag out. I promise the future videos will not be this far, and they would not be this labor intensive. I know you guys, your fingers are probably falling off right now. I know mine aren't, because I don't have to type all this stuff, in which that's a little bit different. Normally I like typing it out because I like feeling like I'm learning alongside with you. But yeah, long story short, once again, don't forget to like the video, thumbs up, subscribe for more. If this really helped you guys out, you know, it really helps me out if you guys leave a like rating, and I appreciate it all a lot. Thank you guys for watching another video. Have a nice night. Peace.